Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. Continue the conversation on college football, and I do want to talk about a story that really actually kind of broke about a week ago, and it's really just a report, but I will say that I did tweet about it, and I got a lot of response both on the tweet itself and then privately. Some of you asked me some questions, and I do think it's a very interesting conversation, and I do think it speaks to a bigger problem that is going on in the world of college sports right now in the NIL era. So let's get into it. Let's jump right to it, and it involves the current USC wide receiver, Jordan Addison. I think everybody listening to this show knows Jordan Addison, of course, was the Biletnikoff winner last year, 2021 college football season. And Jordan Addison, of course, right before the transfer deadline on whatever it was, I think it was May 1st, you had to be in the portal, just hours before, days before, announces that he is going to transfer. Enters the portal, he's recruited by everybody, has opportunities to go to Alabama, Texas, and USC are his final three. He ends up at USC, and even before he entered the portal, there were already rumors that it was NIL related, that somebody from USC reached out to him privately, said, hey, if you come here, we'll give you XYZ. And I'm not making that up, by the way. Remember, Pat Narduzzi, the Pitt head coach, apparently reached out to Lincoln Riley personally. So that part isn't my opinion. But what happened in the last week that made this a story again is that we do have a report that Jordan Addison is unhappy at USC. And so I want to read just the quote, the context, and then we'll set it up from there. So this came, ironically, like so many of these NIL rumors do, from a message board, and it came from a national recruiting expert named Jerry Hamilton, who covers recruiting, and I don't even know what the context of what Jerry Hamilton said, but it certainly resonated. Like I said, I tweeted about it. It went crazy viral. What Jerry Hamilton said, and this is a direct quote, Jordan Addison has been pissed in recent weeks because what he has been promised hasn't been followed through on. Now, I want to say a couple things before I get into some details. One, I cannot speak to Jordan Addison specifically. I've never met him. I don't know anyone in his inner circle. I don't know his agent. I don't know his parents. I don't know whatever. So I'm not speaking about Jordan Addison. I cannot confirm or deny that report, nor will I try to in the next few minutes. But what I can tell you is I think most of you know that I do live in Los Angeles. I do have some things about some stuff at USC. Nothing even negative necessarily. I'm not going to be bashing Lincoln Riley if you're a USC fan. That's not what I'm about to do over the next couple minutes. But I do have some information that I do think most of you probably really do not know. But I also do think it speaks to a problem that we are going to have in college football until we get above-the-board regulations across the board nationally on NIL. And that is that there are lies being told, there are broken promises, there are things being promised when kids get to campus that are not being fulfilled upon. And this is the crazy new world of college football that we have to accept. And it's sad and it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, it is the kids who are being impacted. It's not me. I'm fortunate. What I get to do does not get impacted this one way or another. It's the kids, it's the families, it's people that are promised certain things. And this Jordan Addison report, whether Jordan Addison specifically is involved or not, what's more important is it speaks to a bigger problem going on in college sports right now. And so let's get into what I do know about USC, which I do think is going to be very interesting for many of you. I think most people, even if you peripherally follow college sports, you know that since Lincoln Riley has gotten to USC, it has been, peaches and gravy and sunshine and rainbows, and there's been no disappointment. And I think a lot of why Lincoln Riley, there's so much excitement, is because not only his track record, not only his level of success, but that he's kind of hitting USC at a perfect moment in time. He's hitting USC at a perfect moment in time where, yes, the program is bad, but we now live in this transfer portal world where you don't have to wait 4 years to rebuild your roster. You don't have to sign 3 elite recruiting classes out of the high school ranks and wait until 2026 to compete at the highest level. You can go into the transfer portal, you can get difference makers right away, and clearly USC has been one of the big benefactors of that with Caleb Williams, with Jordan Addison, with many other players, Mario Williams, who came from Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, a couple other guys. They've signed, I think, 20-plus transfers at this point. And I think a lot of people very publicly believe that it's all NIL related, that it's Lincoln Riley, but it's NIL, and that USC just has this spigot of money flowing, and everybody's getting paid, and everybody's driving nice cars, and everybody's living in high-rise apartments, and they are living that LA life. What I can tell you is that is simply not true. And what it comes down to is it was a really interesting scenario about how I stumbled across this information. But when the USC-UCLA Big Ten news happened about 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, it was really interesting because, I just called a buddy of mine at USC probably a day or two after it happened. And as I said, I live in Los Angeles, so I probably know the Pac-12 landscape better than a lot of people. And I kind of reached out to him just to say, dude, did you know? How much did you know? What did you know? When did you find out? And in the process of talking, we started talking NIL. And I kind of said, hey, this is great for you guys because now you're in the Big Ten. There's more money kind of coming into your athletic department through those TV deals. And because there's more TV money coming in, it means that you're going to be less reliant on booster money. So you can go ahead and let those boosters just pay those guys whatever. But hey, who cares because you guys are crushing it in NIL. And it was just an offhand comment that I made of the Big Ten is great. The NIL will thrive in this current environment because now boosters can focus on taking care of the players. And what my contact at USC said to me, he said, man, I hope you're right because we are way behind on NIL. And I thought of this when Jordan Addison, the news broke that he's unhappy, and I had a contact at USC tell me we are way behind on NIL. And I said, what are you talking about? All I ever read, all I ever talk about, all I ever hear is, Lincoln Riley this, USC that, they're the West Coast this, they're going to crush it here. And my buddy said, Torres, do some homework. It's not that. Let me even backtrack. He basically was like, Torres, do your homework because it is not where you think it is in terms of NIL. First of all, fun fact on USC, and you can Google this. This doesn't come from an inside source. USC does not have a collective right now, okay? Now, they recently, in the last month, if you Google USC collective, you'll see from about the middle of June, they did sign up with a marketing agency whose goal is to go out and kind of engage businesses locally. Okay, so that is kind of the collective that they have up to date. But they are behind many of the programs across college sports in terms of they don't have a group of 5, 10, 20 elite boosters that have endless amounts of money. This isn't the reports that you've seen out of other schools, and I'm not going to name the names, but you know what schools that we think have gotten ahead in the NIL collective space. USC ain't that. Some of these schools are trying to do it by the books. Some of these schools are trying to really only make sure that players are taking opportunities kind of on the up and up. Nick Saban has talked about this at Alabama. I know Kentucky fans are frustrated because their AD, Mitch Barnhart, is being very careful about how they're kind of implementing NIL. And my understanding is USC is kind of the same. Again, they started about a month ago a collective that does allow players to kind of connect with local businesses, but it is not just this booster well of money that everybody else has. And so I found that very interesting. And then my buddy said, Torres, look at the everyone's telling us that we're cleaning up in the portal and we're this and we're that. And my buddy said, look, we're always going to get high school players to come to USC because Southern California is so fertile in men's basketball, in women's basketball, in football, all of these sports that matter. But the transfer portal is the difference maker. The transfer portal is the X factor. And what he said to me was, he goes, Torres, go ahead and look at what USC has actually done in the transfer portal across the sports that matter and the sports that we cover. Let's go to basketball for a second because, oh, by the way, many of you know, I cover college basketball too. We're going to talk about basketball in about 10 minutes with the Gigi Jackson stuff. But he said, look at how USC basketball recruited the portal before this season versus this season, okay? If you go back and look at Andy Enfield's track record, Andy Enfield's track record in the portal speaks for itself. He was one of the early adapters to the portal, and really about 3, 4, 5 years ago, started to see the value in bringing in older, more experienced players. It helped USC get to an Elite Eight in 2021. Last offseason, they signed one of the best transfers in the portal named Boogie Ellis, who came from Memphis. And all of a sudden this year, they didn't sign any transfers. And what my source told me, what my contact told me was, do you think that happened by accident? Do you think our basketball program just decided one day, oh, we're not going to recruit transfers anymore? Oh, no. It's because they would get in meetings. You get in meetings, you get in Zooms and contacts and whatever with a player, but the player now has an agent, and the agent is saying, I need this guarantee XYZ. And as we've talked about before, some schools just won't do it. And even if USC wanted to, and I'm not saying that they do want to, but even if they did, they couldn't because they don't have a collective. And so my understanding is they lost out on a lot of really good basketball opportunities because they just don't have that in place where they can say, this is the plan in NIL, this is how we are implementing it. And again, I'm not saying that anything would be done wrong. That's not what I am saying at all. But what I am saying is, go ahead and look. USC basketball has cleaned up in the portal over the last couple years. This year, coming off an Elite Eight in 2021, a season where they were in the top 25 all year. You'd think this would be the year that they would clean up, only it didn't happen at all. Then, of course, there's football. And a lot of you are saying, but Torres, every story, every article I read says that USC, they just crushed it in the portal, led by Caleb Williams. And what my contact told me, and I found this very interesting, he said, look, first of all, Caleb Williams is a different man, different guy, right? Caleb Williams is one of the poster children, like C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, like Bryce Young at Alabama. He's one of the poster children for what NIL is supposed to be. He is in college football circles, a household name. Everybody in the sport knows him. He has a national relevance. He's playing for a big brand. He's a quarterback. And what my contact told me was like, yeah, of course that guy's going to be fine. He's set up with a legitimate agency, really good national brands. I think Beats by Dre is one of many brands that is involved with Caleb Williams. But yeah, Caleb Williams cleaned up. But that's not a USC thing. That's a Caleb Williams thing. And so to circle back to all this Jordan Addison stuff, is he disappointed, is he not? My buddy told me, he said, look at everything else that has happened at USC. Look at all the guys that USC football has signed. Look at all the difference makers that everybody says this is an elite class. I said, okay, Jordan Addison, elite wide receiver. No one's debating that. Mario Williams, elite wide receiver. Keep in mind, he was at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, and he said publicly, wherever Caleb Williams goes, I'm going to end up there with him. There was Travis Dye, running back from Oregon. His coach leaves for Miami. Mario Cristobal decides to enter the portal. But those are all, think about what I just said. A quarterback, 2 wide receivers, skill position, running back. They're all skill position guys. You know who I didn't mention on that list? Didn't mention a single elite offensive lineman. Now, they got some good guys. They got some talented guys. They didn't get anybody elite. As a matter of fact, there was an elite offensive lineman in high school that committed late that was believed to go to USC. He goes to Oregon, and the speculation was, and I don't do NIL speculation, but I'm just saying what other people thought and reported was that it was over NIL. USC lost the top offensive tackle on the West Coast to Oregon in what people believe is NIL. That Oregon is ahead of USC in terms of their collective efforts. Oh, by the way, the defensive side of the football. USC probably signed 8, 10, 12 guys on the defensive side. But outside of a linebacker named Eric Gentry, all Pac-12 freshman team, I think, at Arizona State, they really didn't sign those elite difference makers. And again, it's because they're behind in NIL. And so I didn't intend to make this like a 15-minute USC thing, but it speaks to where we are at in NIL right now and where the frustration comes from. The frustration, when you hear Nick Saban yell and scream about the present and future of college football, it's never, everyone thinks it's because, he thinks he's falling behind. No, he doesn't. What Nick Saban is worried about is making sure that, as he said last week while I was gone, that everybody's on the same playing field, that everybody knows the rules, that, hey, if it's going to take me $500,000 or $1 million to go ahead and get an elite defensive end, defensive tackle, whatever, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm playing on the same playing field as everybody else. I mean, think about it at the most basic level. Imagine this world that we live in where we don't know what reports are true and what's not. Remember, there was a report that Jordan Addison got $4 million to go to USC. Imagine if we did that in the NFL. We know that Patrick Mahomes signed some kind of contract that paid him, it's going to pay him $500 million over 12 years or whatever, and this much is guaranteed. Imagine if we didn't know what Patrick Mahomes was getting. And somebody on a message board just said, yeah, the reports are, I heard from a source, I heard from this, I heard from that. that Patrick Mahomes signed a $1 billion contract. One, think about how big of a story it would be. But then two, what do you think Josh Allen's agent would do? What do you think Tom Brady's agent would do? What do you think Aaron Rodgers' agent would do? Everybody would completely flip it. Everybody would want a new deal. Everybody would want what they think Patrick Mahomes is getting. And that sounds crazy and that sounds absurd, yet that's exactly where we are in college football. I bet that for a lot of you, what I just told you on USC, that's probably the first time you have heard any of that. I can tell you on good authority from people within that athletic department, more than one, that what I told you is true. They feel like they are, all you've heard for 6 months is that USC is changing the game in NIL. Those people inside those walls at Heritage Hall believe they're behind. And so that is the crazy new world that we live in. And again, this is the biggest problem in college sports right now. Nobody knows what's real. Nobody knows what's not. And to take it a step further, you know who's being hurt by it? You know who's on the other end of these broken promises? It's the athletes. Like I said, it's not me. It's not Nick Saban. It's not Lincoln Riley. It's the players who are promised certain things. And so just think about all of the things that are going on behind the scenes because we don't have any facts behind what these reports are. One, you got all these agents running wild. And now, of course, like everything else, there are good agents. I'm not saying every agent is bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. Same with fill in the blank. There's good lawyers and bad lawyers, good teachers and bad teachers. There's good agents and bad agents. But there are some bad agents, and there are some agents that at the very least don't know what they're doing or don't have their client's best interest at heart. Now, I don't know the guy, but remember like 2 weeks ago when we talked about the Miami quarterback that committed to Miami, and everybody said it was about NIL, and he said it wasn't, and then the agent comes out and says, he took less money to go to Miami. Well, you know what that means? He still took money to go to Miami, which is an NCAA rules violation. So one, again, it's that gray area of what's the truth, what's the fact, what's facts, what's fiction. But at the same time, what it also is a guy that does he really have his kid's best interest at heart? Does he not? Does he this? Does he that? This is the new world that we live in. And that's a good story, right? Because we think that kid did get some NIL money. We think that kid's going to be taken care of. What about the kids that are getting to campus and signing and committing to places with promises that just aren't fulfilled? What I've also heard is, first of all, with some of these reports, you got to keep in mind, agents are putting numbers out there because they want them out there because it either helps them get this kid whatever money they want to promise them, or more importantly, it's going to help them get the next guy. But what's the scarier part is the kids that are promised something go to a school because of it, and it never materializes. And you hear all sorts of stories about that behind the scenes in college sports right now. Well, this kid was promised that much, haven't gotten paid yet. This kid was promised that, haven't gotten paid yet. Now, this was just another internet rumor. I'm not saying it's fact because everybody involved denied it, including the kid. But there was a report out of Texas A&M that one of their 5-star recruits is already mad because he was not given something that he was promised. I'll take it a step further. You know what's really scary? Some of these kids, and none of us do, by the way, right? I mean, I'm just going to say it. I have an agent, and I have an agent specifically to help me deal with complex legal things that I may be signing up for or not signing up for. But that's the other scary part. You have these kids that these collectives, and I'm not going to name a specific school because I don't know of one, but they're trying to sign them to these one-sided contracts. They're trying to sign them to they're either backloaded or they're this or they're incentive-based or they're that, or they try to keep your NIL rights after you leave the school. And so listen, I could go on and on and on and on and on, and I can't believe I talked that long about USC, but I just bring it up to say exactly what I said at the beginning. I can't speak to Jordan Addison, and I hope none of you think that I'm saying that I can't. I don't know his situation. I don't know his family situation. But this is the scary part of NIL. You hear stuff becomes fact. Think about all the stuff that we think has become fact since NIL started. The Texas A&M stuff, the John Ruiz Miami stuff, the Tennessee quarterback, whatever. I can't even think of everything. This new Jordan Addison story. And we don't know that it's fact. We don't know if it's fiction. And again, the kids are getting hurt by it. Now, the Caleb Williams are going to be okay. The CJ Strouds are going to be okay. But it's those kids in that next tier that aren't as familiar, that aren't as name brand, that are promised things in recruiting. That's who you have to worry about. And I do hope, and again, it's not for my benefit. My life doesn't change at all. But it is my hope that we do start to wrap our arms around this because, again, it's the kids that get caught in the middle. Cannot speak to Jordan Addison. But what I can tell you, inside those walls at USC, they feel a lot differently about NIL than what's been reported. And it would not surprise me if we hear more of these stories, these allegations. Don't know about Jordan Addison, but these stories and allegations about NIL deals gone wrong, NIL deals being broken, NIL trust being broken.